Hey everybody, it's low carb and keto friendly nutritionist Amy Berger from 2itnutrition.com bringing you another video in doing keto without the crazy. Before I get into today's topic, let me remind you that I have a relatively brand new ebook out now. It's called The Stall Slayer. Link to it below, and you can find it at stallslayer.com. And it is just an ebook right now. It's a PDF, so you can read it electronically, or if you want to print it out and read it in hard copy fashion, as I myself prefer, you can buy the PDF and print it at home. There's two versions available. One of them is more printer friendly, but you can find out all about that at stallslayer.com. Let's see, what else? Oh, second order of business. I don't know if you are aware, but my friend Casey Durango and I, Casey Durango from Go Keto with Casey, it's just caseydurango.com, the third Wednesday of every month, we have a virtual online little chat. And even before the whole stay at home, shelter in place, distancing thing, this was a virtual event. It was never live in person. And again, third Wednesday of every month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. There's one tonight. I'm recording on April 15th. It's a Wednesday. We have one this evening. We call it Wednesday Wine Day because you are welcome to just call in with a glass of wine or a light beer or a kombucha or a broth or whatever adult or non-adult, alcoholic, non-alcoholic beverage you prefer. And we just chit chat. It's kind of keto Q&A. Casey has lost just shy of 100 pounds on keto, and she did it all after menopause. So yes, it can be done. And that's it, but I'll put a link to that. It is a $5 fee because we cover, our time, and there is a fee for the software that Casey uses to organize the call. So Casey and I are on camera. You can see us. You won't be seen if you're just a participant, but you have access to the chat window where you can chat real time with everyone else who's there. Okay, moving on to the topic. Amenorrhea, or losing your period on keto. This is a viewer request. Someone asked me not too long ago, so I'm happy I'm finally getting to a viewer request sort of in a timely manner. Now, if you have, whatever, I was going to say if you're new to keto, but you don't have to be new. If you have lost your period on a low carb or ketogenic diet, what is the deal? Now, I would say this is not a very common problem, but it's common enough that we know about it. It doesn't shock me as a keto nutritionist, and it wouldn't shock any keto-friendly doctor or other practitioner if a woman or a girl comes to us and says, I don't have my period anymore. Like, this is my surprise face. I'm not surprised at all. So why does this happen, and what should you do about it? I guess, no notes, so once again, speaking off the cuff, hopefully this isn't a total train wreck. The first thing to know is that your reproductive cycle, whether you're a man or a woman, is very, very important. And it is a very good indicator into your health or your just things that are going on inside that you might not even be aware of. If you're a guy, you should have a pretty good libido. You should have an interest in sex. Maybe you don't have to wake up with that morning wood every day, but if it's been ages and ages since you've had that, something might be an issue. And for women, a healthy menstrual cycle, a sort of normal, somewhat regular menstrual cycle, is a pretty big deal. It's a very strong, indicator as to what is going on internally. And it's also your libido, your sex drive, your menstrual cycle, your ability to maintain an erection if you're a guy. All of these sort of reproductive / sexual function things are some of the first things to go when your health is trending in a not so great direction. Because it's not essential, right? It's in an evolutionary biological sense, those functions are essential to keep the human race propagating and to keep us going long term. But in terms of you as an individual staying alive, really not that important. You don't have to have an erection to stay alive. You don't have to have a period to stay alive. You don't have to have a strong libido to stay alive. So if something is amiss in your body and your body thinks there's some type of crisis or some type of stressful situation, the first place it's going to stop devoting energy and resources to is reproducing. Because under that stressful crisis type scenario, your body is thinking, maybe we don't really need to have a baby right now. Maybe we need to just keep ourselves alive. Maybe we need to shut down all the like non-essential things that just keep us breathing and our heart beating and just keep us getting from one moment to the next. Right now, probably not the best time to bring a baby into the world. Okay, so what does any of this have to do with keto? I would say, now I'm going to do a bit of stereotyping here, but I'll try to explain. So please, nobody take offense if you do or do not fit into some of the categories I'm going to talk about. I would say that when we hear of women losing their periods on a low carb or ketogenic diet, it tends to be, and I say tends, I am stereotyping, I am sort of grouping, it tends to be women who are younger and women who are already pretty thin, if not already at their goal weight or under their goal weight, and women who exercise a lot. Exercise a lot, whether it's intensity and frequency, meaning they exercise really hard and they do it multiple times a week. Now, the problem when you lose your period, for the most part, it's a sign of some type of stress. And stress is a big sort of general word that encompasses a lot of things. It could be psychological stress, like right now with this virus thing, a lot of people we have all kinds of mental and psychological worry. We're worried about our finances. We're worried about our family's health, all these concerns. It may not be anything actually in the physical body, but what's going on in the mind, the sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, can translate into a lot of things that will manifest physically. And then the other part of a physical stressor is two things when we talk about keto. The first is, a lot of women and girls, even more so than women, younger girls, but women who over-exercise and under-eat will, I won't say often, but they can and do sometimes lose their periods, and that can happen on any diet. That's not solely an artifact of keto. That's an outcome of pushing yourself too darn hard all the time and not giving your body the downtime to rest and replenish and get your nutritional repletion. So when you are running on empty, like that good old Jackson Browne song, you're running on empty and you keep on pushing and keep on pushing, but you're not putting enough fuel into the tank, guess what? Your car stalls out. Your period, no more period. We're starving and we're exercising like a maniac. Why on earth would your body interpret that as a good, healthy time to reproduce? It makes perfect sense that your reproductive cycle would shut down during that time, right? So again, that's not specific to keto. That's specific to a lifestyle in which a girl or woman is not respecting the fact that she is a human animal. An animal, and we need nourishment, we need nutrients, we need rest. I have nothing against intense exercise, even intense exercise many times a week. But if you exercise hard, you have to rest hard and you have to eat hard. Now, with regard to keto, like I said, this sort of loss of the period, the amenorrhea, can happen on any diet. And this, there's a lot of other reasons why it can happen, but I am talking mostly about the food and lifestyle stuff. I think it's not uncommon for women to unintentionally undereat. And it happens for a couple of reasons. One of them is that for some people, not everybody, but for some people, the way the ketogenic or low carb diet sort of alters your metabolism, many people just find themselves less hungry. They're just not that hungry, so they eat less without even deliberately trying. And you may be in a position where you're eating so much less that your period is stopping because you're starving, basically. You don't mean to. You're not trying to starve yourself, but you are unaware that the amount of food you're consuming is not enough to support all of your body's processes and demands. And let's see, the other issue that I see with women undereating on keto is that, like I said, it tends to happen. It can happen in women of reproductive age, unless you're, at or through menopause, then the amenorrhea can hit at any, reproductive female age. But it tends to happen in the younger gals. And part of it, but it can happen in the older. It's partly because some of you, I was about to say us, but I've never like accidentally undereaten. So it's not really us if I'm not in it. It's you, the you out there that just, oh, I forgot to eat. Okay. No, I know that happens. I'm just kidding. It tends to be that so many, I'll say us, so many of us grew up in the diet mentality. And by diet, I mean calorie restriction. I mean counting calories, points, grams of fat, grams of carbs, grams of everything, weighing our food on a scale. And I'll get to the weighing and measuring in a minute. The point is, many of us grew up in a mindset like that, the restrictive mindset, restrict, restrict, restrict. And we've brought that into the ketogenic diet world we're in now. We've brought the restriction, we've brought the low calorie, the low everything. And so some of you are still under eating because you are just afraid to eat. You're afraid to put food in your body. And that's the number one recommendation I can tell a woman or girl who has lost her period on a ketogenic diet is that you need to eat more food. And the other, that's first, eat more food. And it could be that you need more protein. I've seen this in some of the people that just restrict protein too much, and because they're afraid of protein. They've heard on some random website or some random forum that too much protein turns into sugar or it kicks you out of ketosis. I can link to maybe some blog posts I've written about that because these myths have to go. Those myths are steeped in a little kernel of truth, but that small kernel of truth has been wildly misinterpreted and erroneously extrapolated to have meanings that it doesn't actually have. So if you are a woman, and especially if you are a very hard, very dedicated exercising woman and you have lost your period, you need more food, you probably need more protein. You might need more fat too, but I can almost bank on you needing more protein. You do not need to limit it. I kind of want to cry if you tell me you're eating the protein it's the size of a deck of cards. That 3 or 4 ounces? No, more. You could double that. You could triple it. I mean, it's okay. Moving on, I said you probably need more protein. You probably need more fat. Hear me out, ladies. Hear me out. You might need more carbs. There, I said it. You might need more carbs. And I'm going to be totally honest with you here. I don't fully understand the science behind it, but there are some women who report that they just do better, feel better, everything's better with more carbs. And I am not talking about 200 or 300 grams of carbs. I'm talking 80 grams of carbs, 100 grams of carbs. If you're exercising really hard several times a week, 100 grams of carbs over the course of a whole day is nothing. It's really actually not that much. And, I would recommend that you get it from starchy vegetables, starchy tubers, things like potatoes, yams, beets, sweet potatoes, butternut squash, acorn squash. You could incorporate fruit. You could incorporate, assuming they agree with you digestively, you could do beans, you could do lentils. You don't have to eat garbage. You don't have to eat, I won't name specific foods. You don't have to eat abject, refined carb garbage. You could eat foods that are at least, give you some nutrients along with the carbohydrate, along with the starch and sugar. So, we have come to demonize carbohydrate a little too much in the keto world. And hear me out. What did I say at the beginning of this video? What do I say at the beginning of all my videos? It's low carb and keto friendly nutritionist Amy Berger. I've made my career out of the low carb and ketogenic diets. So clearly I understand how great they are. And clearly right off the bat, I understand, and I'm telling you right now, carbohydrate is not an essential macronutrient. It's not. You can live on protein and fat. You don't have to ever consume carbohydrate. But that just because it's not essential in a physiological sense doesn't mean that it can't be beneficial in some way for some people in some circumstances. And I apologize for being so like snarky about the like some people in some circumstances. But good Lord, people, if you ever read through the comments on social media, people deliberately misunderstand and misinterpret. Well, I don't fit into that. I'm not talking to you. Okay? I'm talking to the people to whom this makes sense and to whom they're like, wow, I think that sounds like exactly my problem. Anyway, there are some people that just feel better with more carbs because guess what? I love my carnivore friends and my carnivore peeps, but red meat is not essential to the human diet. Every single thing that's in red meat you can get from another animal food. You can get it from whether it's poultry or fish or I don't know what, some other kind of kangaroo meat, some other animal. You can get all those vitamins and minerals. You can get carnitine, you can get whatever, taurine, whatever these other modified amino acids we're talking about. But that doesn't mean that's just because red meat is not essential doesn't mean some people don't feel really, really good eating red meat. Maybe feeling their best eating red meat. And really the same is true of carbs. And I am not saying that you need carbs, right? I just said you don't need carbs. But just because you don't need them doesn't mean you might not do better with them. And it's not just that some people have a higher tolerance. Like we all kind of know that. Some of us thrive really best on super, super low carb strict keto, like 20 total grams or fewer, or 30 or 40 total grams or fewer. Some people can do just kind of lowish carb, maybe the 50 to like 85, 50 to 100 even sort of carbohydrate realm, which compared to a strict ketogenic diet, that's not all that low carb, but compared to what most people in North America are eating, compared to what most of us were eating before keto, that's pretty darn low. I mean, 80 grams of carbs. I could have eaten 80 grams of carbs for breakfast alone between a giant bowl of cereal and 2 pieces of toast. Anyway, so just like that red meat thing. I'm saying we all know that we all have a different carbohydrate tolerance. Some of us need strict keto, some people don't. And the thing with carbs, though, is even the people, it's not even so much that some people have a higher carb tolerance that they can get away with more carbs. It's not just that they can handle more carbs. They actually do better with more carbs. And by better, I don't necessarily mean blood work, because I think the blood work in someone who does equally well on higher carbs or lower carbs or whatever, the blood work is always going to be good. So I mean more like their physical performance, whether we're talking about athletics, I mean physical energy just in general, even if you're not out there doing Ironman triathlons all the time, mental and emotional energy. Some people, of course, and I've done a video on keto for mental health, maybe I'll even link to that if I remember. Of course, the ketogenic diet is massively beneficial for a number of mental health concerns. And this is like validated by published research. They've done research on this now at this point, schizophrenia, bipolar, all kinds of things. Not everybody gets better with keto with that. Some people feel their best emotionally and even cognitively and everything with a little bit more carb. And again, I'm not talking 200 or 300 grams of carbs a day. I'm just talking a little more starch than you may be eating right now. And it's kind of funny that this is even coming up, because I am right now putting the finishing touches on the manuscript of a book that I'm co-writing with a pretty well-known keto MD. We're teaming up. And this is exactly what we're writing about, that some people need keto. Some people, it's life-changing, life-saving for some people. Some people can be a little more liberal, have some more carbs. They have a little more wiggle room. Some people have a lot more wiggle room. And I said earlier that we've demonized carbs a little too much in the keto world, and we really have. And believe me, I'm not. If you are watching this video and you weigh 350 pounds and you have type 2 diabetes, or you have PCOS, or you have acid reflux or whatever, I'm not telling you to eat more carbs. Unless, hey, if you've lost your period, maybe you need more carbs. No, anyway, I'm going to assume that most of the women out there who have lost a period on keto are already on the slender side. They're probably very physically active, but even if you're not very active, if you're just on the very thin side, um, not only do you probably not need strict keto, but strict keto might actually be working against you. And I would encourage you to not be afraid of carbs. I would introduce them in a sensible manner. And we actually talk about how to do this in the book that's coming out. That book probably won't be out until the end of 2020, maybe sometime in the late fall, I hope. So I don't want to spoil the surprise. I'm not going to tell you how to do it now. Well, I'll give you some tips. Another way to tell, besides the fact that you've lost your period, which is a huge red flag right there, another way to tell that you might need slightly more carbohydrate is if you are a regular, intense exerciser and you have sort of recently lost your mojo, you've lost your oomph, like virus aside and the fact that we're all sort of stuck at home aside, if you were to go to the gym, you don't feel like going anymore. You don't want to go. Maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, you liked to go, you looked forward to going, you enjoyed it, but the last however long period of time, you just don't want to go anymore. You have to force yourself. It's become a chore. And maybe when you do, whether it's the gym or running outside or swimming, whatever it is you normally do, and not only do you have to force yourself to do it, you might actually be backsliding in terms of your power, your strength, your endurance, whatever you use to mark your progress in terms of your physical, your strength, your power, whatever. You're going backward. You're not making progress. You're losing ground. And so that's a sign that I would say you could probably just eat more food, but you might just honestly do better with more carbohydrate. And I ran into this myself. The reason I can say this is because I know how this feels. I never got so far in that nutritional hole or the stress hole that I lost my period. But years and years ago, before I was even a nutritionist, but I was eating low carb at that time, I was a member on a forum. And I had been going to the gym several times a week. I think I might have been like unemployed at the time and I had like nothing better to do. So I was working out a ton. And I was fairly thin. I've never been skinny. Even at my thinnest, no one would ever say that I was skinny or that I looked unwell, even at my smallest. But I was small for me at the time, working out really hard and eating very, very low carb. And I found all the things that I just said. I didn't want to go to the gym anymore, whereas I used to enjoy it. It was fun. I didn't want to go. I had to force myself to go. I was tired all the time. I was kind of depressed. When I did go to the gym, I just wasn't feeling it. Like I couldn't lift as much. I didn't want to lift as much. And I described my situation on the forum. The forum still exists, but it's a shell of its former self. We're talking like the year 2000. We're talking probably 20 years ago at this point. So there was a woman who was a bodybuilder, and she was extremely knowledgeable, very knowledgeable about all this stuff. And she replied to me, and she said exactly what I just said to you. She said, you need to eat more carbs. And she said, I know you're really scared. I know you're afraid to do it, but just do it. Like, will you promise me you'll do it for like 3 or 4 days and just see what happens? So I did. And it was like somebody flipped a switch. Within about 2 days, I felt much, much better. And like I said, I didn't lose my period, so I can't say, oh, my period came back. I'm pretty sure if I had been in that place, it would have come back a month or 2 later. But my energy levels and my drive immediately sort of returned. And here's what I did. I didn't wake up the next morning and have bread and toast and a bran muffin and orange juice for breakfast. At the time, I was super, super low carb. So I started with things like carrots and red peppers. I had like a raw red pepper for lunch or something, I mean, with the protein and fat, but introduced those kinds of things. And over the next couple of days, I actually got to the point where I was eating probably about a half cup of lentils. So, some starchier things, some sweeter things, but whole, real foods and not a ton of them. And that was enough to like, it's like somebody turned the light on. And you have to understand that you can't apply everything that's said online about a ketogenic diet to you, because some of the things that are said are intended for people who are living with morbid obesity or type 2 diabetes or PCOS or hypertension or metabolic syndrome or skin tags or gout or whatever. If you are young and healthy and fit, you probably don't need a strict ketogenic diet. And I don't care what anyone says. I don't care how many hundreds of thousands or millions of views their videos have, more than mine, or more than are subscribed to my channel. I don't care who they are. They are wrong if they are convincing you that a ketogenic diet is the only way to be fit and healthy. It is not. Is it a really good, effective way? Yeah. Is it the only way? No. Is it even the best way for everybody across the board, no matter their circumstances? No. No. A ketogenic diet is one strategy among many. And, you know, there are dietitians and nutritionists out there who are keto friendly and low carb friendly, but who also recognize this population and that they need carbs. They need more starch. And so maybe I might even link to one or two of them that I actually know personally and respect their work and I trust what they do. And, you know, trust me, their clients are getting results like crazy. It's not like these women are starting to gain 40 pounds back because of carbs. They're doing great. And so you can't take information intended for someone who is very, very unwell, very sick, very in some other situation that is not your situation. You are literally different people. I mean, I can't really say it any more clearly than that. You have to, like, everything that you learn about keto or read, whether it's if you're going directly to the medical literature or you're listening to me or you're listening to whoever is out there, take in the information and think about whether it seems applicable to your situation. You know, because I think that's part of the problem when we hear, especially with fasting, like, everyone can fast. Yes. Not everybody should fast. Can fasting be amazing and awesomely therapeutic for a lot of things? Yeah. Should everybody fast all the time? No. And I say that with love. I dearly love and respect Jason Fung and Megan Ramos and all the people from the fasting method protocol and all that. But fasting is not appropriate for everybody all the time, you know? And like, I think, again, if you're one of these sort of very, very active, healthy, lean, already at your ideal weight or close to it, or more likely under it if you've lost your period, fasting is not for you. Just because Dr. So-and-so or RD so-and-so or nutritionist so-and-so says fasting does all these great things, look at this 20-point bullet list of things fasting does. So what? If it's not appropriate for you, it's not appropriate for you. I think that's what I see happening, is just people applying strategies to themselves that should not be applied in their circumstance. It doesn't mean it's a bad strategy. It means it's inappropriate for that particular person at this particular point in time. Now, I said I was going to stereotype. Obviously, I've done a lot of stereotyping. It's not that, like, older women, I mean, still within reproductive age if you're not past menopause, older women can and do lose their periods. Heavy women can and do lose their periods. So if you are in the heavier or older category, it probably means the same thing. You know, if you don't have to be underweight to lose your period from a physically stressful point or a psychologically stressful time, or from a physical stressor. So even if you are still quite heavy, if you are under eating to the point where your body's like, for lack of a scientific term, like in crisis mode, you might lose your period. So I also, if you're over exercising, you know, and especially over exercising and combining the under eating, even if you're still heavy, internally that can be stressful to your body and it might interfere with your menstrual cycle. So it just, the reason I started out with the sort of thinner, really active, younger people is because that is who this happens to more commonly than the other categories. And of course, PCOS, I did a whole video on PCOS. I'll link to that too. Lots of links down there. Because, you know, that's one of the things. You either stop menstruating or you might have an anovulatory cycle. So like you don't actually ovulate. And clearly PCOS often, but not always, often women with PCOS are on the heavy side. So clearly you don't have to be, you know, underweight to lose your period. But if you have PCOS, you are losing your period or you are not ovulating for very different reasons than someone who is underweight and over exercising. The good news is for the PCOS gals, watch my video on PCOS or read the blog post. Keto is dynamite for PCOS. Remember how I said carbs can be really beneficial for some people, not so beneficial for others. If you are deep in the thick of PCOS and you're trying to get better, keto is a really, really great way to do that. There's published studies on it. That's it. I didn't think I was going to talk for over 30 minutes about amenorrhea on keto because I could have talked about it for 10 minutes. So I'm going to shut up now. Check out my ebook, The Stall Slayer, link below. We do have plans to put it on Amazon soon. It's going to be a Kindle and there's going to be a print on demand. So if you want to wait for that, it might be a few more weeks before that's out. If you want to wait. If you want it now, which I know you do, stallslayer.com, link below. I'll see you next time. Bye.